So we are Team 1796. We're here to present to you guys Playbook Foundations, one of our new series that we're starting for going more into math strategy. And today we're going to be doing Intro to Scouting. So here's today's agenda. So first we'll be covering scouting and why scouting matters. 2, how to effectively scout. 3, the main ways of scouting. 4, tools and resources for you guys to use to get started on scouting right away. And 5, the key takeaways and Q&A at the end. So my name is Rohan. I'm a senior. I am our team's graphic design lead and also our game and analysis lead, and this is my 4th year on the team.
I'm Gabriel Ilyaev. I'm a junior on the team. I'm the lead of our Robo Tigers Emergency Service Squad, and I'm also part of game analysis. It's my 3rd year on the team.
Yeah, and I'm Daniel. I'm a software mentor at the team, and I'm the mentor also for game analysis and scouting.
So, who are we? We are FRC Team 1796 from Queens Technical High School in Long Island City, right here in New York. This is we were founded in 2005, and this is our 21st season. And before we get started, I just wanted you guys to know that if you guys have any questions throughout any time, we just raise your hand and we will answer your question. Does everyone get that? Okay.
There'll also be time at the end.
Yeah, so at the end we're also going to have a Q&A in case you want to ask your questions at the end, but we do respect your questions, so we want you guys to ask questions if you have any. So, what exactly is scouting?
So scouting is all about collecting data on teams to improve decision making. Some examples of those decision making that can be improved is talking to teams about their robot to fundamentally understand what the robot does. So it could be their design, their electronics, maybe their programming, or their autonomous, etc. Scouting can help with that. Scouting also helps with tracking how robots score and perform during matches. So maybe they have a really good match for one match, but then the next match isn't the greatest. Scouting could help track that. Scouting also helps identifying the strengths and weaknesses of teams. So like an example for our team is that we couldn't do L1 that well throughout the season. So scouting can help maybe look at teams that are strong at L1, and that can help math strategy or maybe even pick what's going into competition or during competition. Scouting also helps another example is by talking with teams and watching the robot, it can help inspire you to improve your team. So like multiple times throughout competition, there were times where I would see a robot that has a really cool mechanism, and I would pass that along to maybe our mechanical team, and maybe we can have something similar to that going into the next season. And scouting is also really important, and some teams just ignore it completely. I've talked to teams that don't have any emphasis on scouting, and for our team personally, we didn't think scouting was too important for our first couple of years as a team. But then once we started putting more emphasis on scouting, our team became more successful. So why is scouting important? Well, scouting helps you make better match decisions, and that kind of improves your chances of winning. It makes matches more predictable, and allowing you to prepare more robust strategies. And you can also easily identify which teams fit your strategy. So for our team, strategy always starts with the data that comes from scouters, and it kind of, from there, gets built up through our match analysts into a full match strategy. But it always starts with the data that our scouters give us. That's why it's so important. It also lets you pick better performing teams for line selection. So let's say your scouting data isn't the greatest, and maybe you accidentally miss a team that performs better than another one, and you accidentally pick a team that doesn't fit your alliance that you're trying to build properly because you didn't have the correct scouting data. It also lets you show who is consistent versus inconsistent. So for our team, we think that consistency is key. Consistency is super important to us. And maybe you have a really fast cycling robot that you're scouting, but that doesn't really mean anything if they're missing or if they aren't properly scoring. So we think consistency is a lot better consistency is key. It also helps you differentiate teams who may look similar on paper. So let's say for pick list, there's a team that looks the exact same as another team, but maybe one of those teams scored twice as many game pieces on average than the other one. You won't know that unless you have the scouting data to find that out. So what are some forms of scouting? These are just forms of scouting that we use personally, and those are stand scouting. So this is the most common type of scouting that you'll see at a competition. Stand scouting is scouting robots individually and getting data of that robot's performance in a match. Again, this is the most common way of scouting that you'll see. And also pit scouting. So pit scouting is something that we highly recommend. It's where you're scouting robots in a team's pit in order to learn more about that team's abilities, maybe the team vibes, or the robot design. Pit scouting can help you maybe find things that you didn't notice about a team before, and it can really help you build a strategy, a good strategy. What are some other forms of what's that?
Sorry, I have a question on pit scouting.
Yeah, what's that?
What type of questions do you guys ask when you're pit scouting to get the most out of that conversation?
So usually we would ask mostly like normal questions such as weight, frame perimeter,
Drive motors.
drive motors, which drive they're running. We also like to ask about what their autonomous looks like, or their best autonomous looks like. We would ask about their robot abilities. That's like one of the key ones. So we like to ask. We don't like to ask like how consistent are they at it, or like any questions like directly about it, but we just want to know more about what can the robot do as of right now. And we also
Yeah, and the abilities is usually like a checklist, so it's like easy to check off, right? Because we don't want to like when you actually want to see what a robot can do. Usually that's through stand scouting. So it's more of just like a quick checklist of like, oh yeah, they say they can do level 1, level 2, level 3. And then so before we have any actual stand scouting data, at least we have something on the teams.
so
And we also ask like what they're currently working on. Maybe they're still fixing the robot, or maybe what did you improve from last competition? Like very general questions. We don't want to have a lot of questions in the pit scouting because obviously teams sometimes like over exaggerate what the robot can do. So usually it's like very basic questions.
is that all for your question?
It is. Thank you.
Just going off what he said, sorry, it's a little more specific, but typically at regionals, not just like last year, for gears, you guys sometimes ask about battery brand and motor brand, or at least I've been asked that even as a mentor now. Like when you guys come around, what are you guys looking for when you ask for the battery brand or the brand of the motors? Since
So I know we don't ask for battery brand. That's like not one of the questions that we ask, but we do ask for motor brand, and that's because we think that some motors are like statistically better than others. So we know like the Kraken is one of the most powerful motors that you can buy on the market right now. So if you have like a robot powered by that, it would like statistically be a little bit better than like other robots with like other motors. So that's why we do like to ask that question.
Yeah, and also like we have like we like to work with like Krakens and Falcons and that sort of motor. So when we ask like if you have a Neo, we know that we might not carry Neos in our pit if you need to replace it.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I didn't know if it was like a
So
deal breaker though.
Yeah,
No. And for batteries, we just ask how many batteries a team has.
Oh, that might have been what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't ask for specific brands. Yeah.
And that's just so we know that like even going into like a normal match, we know hey, they don't have a lot of batteries, maybe we can run them more.
Is that all for your question?
Yeah, for that one, yeah.
Does anyone else have any questions? Okay. So moving on.
So what are some other forms of scouting? Now these two we feel are highly recommended. So pre-scouting is something that you do before competition. It's where you're scouting teams' robots' performance at previous competitions. So maybe let's say you're going to a Week 4 or 5 event and you've never played with a specific team that's going to that event. Maybe they played in a Week 2 event, and you can scout how they did in that Week 2 event. So you can build up strategy going into the competition. Let's say it's your first match of the day or your second match of the day, and you're playing with or against a robot it's their first match of the day. There's no scouting data on that team. Pre-scouting helps make strategies going into it, so you have the upper hand going into competition. We highly recommend it. Pick list is also highly recommended for teams that really want to be successful. And picklist is where you're creating a list of ranked robots in a competition for alliance selection.
Yeah. So going more into like pick lists, like it doesn't matter like if you're ranked like the first seed or like the second seed. If you don't have a well-made pick list, it could lead to like your team not being as successful as any other team at competition just because your pick list is not as well made. So for example, like if your robot is not good at one thing and you choose a robot that doesn't complement your robot, it could lead to your alliance not putting up as many points as you would want if you did actually go through and make a thorough pick list. So pick list is really an essential of being successful at competition, and it's the second part of the competition, which is playoffs. So now we're gonna talk. Now we talked about how like what is scouting and how like the different forms of scouting work. So now we're gonna be talking about how do you guys successfully scout. So when scouting, you guys want to focus on high impact data points. So what I mean by this is looking for easy but high impact data points for your team's match strategy and pick list. Remember that you want to look for data points that affect your team, right? And they're always going to be different for everybody. So some teams prefer some things rather than others. But some examples would be cycles, which are how many game pieces is a team actually scoring within a match. The next is accuracy. So are they accurate and able to score easily, or do they miss a lot? Which is like kind of a level up from cycles. So some teams choose not to look for accuracy, but accuracy is actually important because if a team has like 13, it can do like 13 cycles, but they're not scoring these cycles, then those cycles are kind of meaningless. And so having these data points are easy, but still very, very effective to know how a robot works. And then we have endgame. So what level of endgame can they do, and are they consistent at it? So an example from this year's game would be deep climb or shallow climb. Are they able to do either or, and are they consistent at it? Which is really important because it's really easy to tick off, right? It could just be like a box checklist, right? So saying like, can they climb, can they deep climb, or can they like shallow climb? And seeing if they're consistent at it. And remember that endgame is a really big, is a huge game changer as it's able to like turn the tides of a match. So yeah.
And in this year's game, did you guys, or in other games obviously too, do you guys have space for the end game? Because some teams may, since they can still get the ranking point without climbing by the other teammates, maybe cycling more L4s for more points, or like, I know like my team is successfully last year, like putting algae in the processor and teams forgetting to shoot it. Like, do you guys have spots for that on your end game areas or in your scouting sheets? Because like, even though sometimes that stuff's like added into your typical cycles, those like last few points that swing the percentage of a match, like sometimes those like unnoticed, because like some of the reasons why some teams lost last year in like quals at least is because they didn't expect 6 points to come through the processor at the end, and the human play their third robot at the human player station, that was a rookie team that doesn't know the rules, didn't know that they can shoot it after the buzzer's over. Like, is that stuff accounted? Because I know you guys are like super high level with the scouting. Is that stuff thrown into your end game stuff, or is that not added into that part?
So like, you know.
By space, do you mean like the team didn't have space to climb?
No, I meant like when you guys are calculating your end game points. Obviously, climbing is technically end game, but teams can do other things in the end game that can give them points, that either take points away from the other team or do stuff at the end of the match that add on last second points. Do you guys add that into anywhere specifically in your scouting list, or is that not something that you guys even typically recognize?
Yeah, I guess we don't like specifically factor, oh, did they choose to, do 2L4 instead of climbing or something at the end. We just track the data, and then like if that team is scoring more points in a match, then they're like ranked highly at first, but then obviously like if we like look through the actual data, they were like, oh wait, okay, move them down.
Yeah, cause I meant like, obviously climbing is the end game of the points, but like just because the team didn't climb didn't mean
Yeah.
that like they weren't being
Yeah.
productive.
Yeah. No, we don't. Yeah, specifically have anything to.
Account.
Yeah, yeah. But yeah, that is an interesting point.
Wait, sorry guys. For high impact data points, do your stand scouters also scout those? But-
Yeah. This is like what the stand scouts.
Oh,
scout.
because I know you guys emphasize a lot on the quantitative data, so
Mhm.
I'm wondering like if you guys split anything for quantitative and qualitative.
So yeah, we don't talk about it in this slide, but we do have qualitative scouters who are super
Oh.
scouts, and they more or less are the people that give the subjective information. So they rank the robots 1 to 3, and on the driver awareness and the agility of a robot, so how quick they are and if they're good at driving and stuff.
Oh,
So, yeah,
that's
those
so
are-
cool.
Is that your question? Yeah. Also, is your question answered?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, going back, we have finally reliability flags, which are general flags that you guys can use every season, every year, no matter what the game is. And that's these are like the biggest points for us. We would say, as it doesn't matter if a robot how good and efficient a robot is, but if they're constantly breaking down every match or losing comms every match, that just means that in a playoffs match or in a normal quals match or in any match in general, they could easily hurt our alliance. So some of these flags would be if that robot had lost comms, did that robot tip, or did that robot's mechanism break? And these are just some reliability flags that you can use, or if you come up with more yourself, then you guys can use more. So next we have avoiding overwhelming data points that could hurt your team's data. So a lot of teams are actually like what I would say like over scouting, right? There's a lot of points that you guys don't actually need to be scouting, as it's not as effective as it is effort. Like there's way too much effort going in it, but not enough efficiency coming out of it and impact coming out of it. And some of that would be, an example of that would be tracking a robot's path in auto, which is really, really hard to do, as you have to train all your scouts to be on the same page on how an auto path works and how it's gonna look. And it comes down more to being subjective rather than it is like clicking buttons and actually like scouting easily. And this could end up hurting your team, because if one person doesn't fully grasp that concept, then that person is going to be scouting wrong, and your data is going to be miscommunicated for all your matches that scout scouts. So,
Yeah, and you can always like either level up one of these data points or simplify them, right? For like the auto path, you can simplify it by just like tracking where they actually start, right? That still tells you a lot. It tells you, oh, every match they're starting here, which means, they might not have other starting positions. So are we compatible with them or not? Or like for endgame, right? You can level up by like tracking how long it actually takes them to climb. But that's also a very like subjective thing, because every scout might have a different start time. So now that requires extra training. So it's always up to like your team's capability and like headcount to see what's actually worth it.
So how do you guys know what your team should be scouting? Remember that all of the data points are for your team and your team's robot. A great example is our team's like inefficiency in level 1 scoring, right? So whenever we were making match strategies, whenever we were making pick lists, anything that had to do with like competition, we always kept in mind that the robots that could efficiency score level 1 that fit into our match planning, right? So it's always important to remember like your team's own weakness in order to build a better strategy around it. Another example would be if your robot is a great coral scorer but you guys can't do algae, it's really important to look for a teammate that can do that algae for you and complete your alliance in order to be the most effective alliance on a competition. So now we'll show you a little bit about what we focus on ourselves. So these are screenshots from our website itself that we use. So as you guys can see on the left screenshot, we have picking up from the station or from the floor. Oh, and these are all coral. So picking up coral from the station or from the floor or where they preloaded. And once you click on that, on either station, floor, or preloaded, you would go to the next screen, which is level 4, 3, 2, 1, and if they missed. And this is one of the things that we like love to do with our website, which is keeping everything like very simplistic and very simple for our scouts to just understand immediately. And we don't want to make anything in our application overly complex or confusing for anyone to like get confused about. So ultimately, we wanted simple but effective data points, like we discussed, and we did not track cycle times, but it's definitely something we want to explore in the future. But scouting cycle times, we believed this year was just a little bit harder, and in order to actually like fully commit to scouting cycle times, we would have to put more thought into it. But it's definitely something that we do look forward to in the future. So now for some general scouting tips and advice. So one thing that I really want to enforce is that scouting together with other teams if your team is small or low on resources. And basically what this means is asking other teams for collaboration and for help with their scouting or your scouting. And the reason why this is important is because not only do you have your team's own scouting, but you also have another team's scouting data that you can look at as well. And this benefits both teams, so your team and the team that you're asking to collaborate with. So remembering that this is an option and that this will guaranteed help both teams be successful at competition is one huge piece of advice that we'd like to give. Another piece of advice we'd like to give is if your team has the head count, then allocating one person to be a head scout to handle logistics and manage scouts can be a big help. And what I mean by this is, for example, our team, we always have a like super duper scout that is in charge of like all the other scouts, making sure that all the scouts are being productive, that they're always scouting, that they're always doing what they have to do, and making sure that all of the scouting data is always there, and just making sure that everything is organized and going smooth and running smoothly. And we really do recommend that your guys' teams also includes a head scout if possible. And one way that we include a head scout while not losing our manpower is that our head scout themselves also scouts on top of being in charge of like a lot of other scouting members if you have someone that's available to do that. But again, we really do encourage you guys to find someone on your team that could be allocated to that position. Next, the next two are really important, not only for scouting data, but just for scouters in general. It really sucks having being burnt out and scouting just like really insane amount of matches, right? So remember that scouters should be getting breaks, even if it means losing some match data, and that it's always better to miss some matches but have quality data rather than having incorrect data due to fatigue. So what we do on our team is that we have 20 match rotations. So every 20 matches, no matter how many matches there are in a competition, we always like to have our scouters rotated by 20 matches. And we believe this because after 20 matches, people start to get burnt out. And we don't want them to start getting fatigued and getting bored and then just having worser data. So yeah. And on top of this, you need to have fair rotations for your scouters. So like we said, every 20 matches, we like to rotate our scouters, and just having this allows your scouters to have better data and keep them more energized, more hydrated, and more everything, just more ready to actually want to scout.
Oh, I have a question about your Super Duper Scout. Can you give some more examples on exactly what they do, in more detail?
Yeah, sure. So myself, I am a super duper scout. So what we do is that we take on the role of super scout originally. So we have stand scouts and then super scouts, and then super duper scouts are just super scouts that also look after the stand scouters. So I'm always making sure that everyone that's supposed to be scouting is scouting. If they have any questions, they always go to me and ask me questions. So if one of my scouts were confused by oh, this happened on the field, but we don't have this, so what do I mark it as? Then I would always find a solution for their problems. and I'm always there to help. And especially one big thing is one other reason like why we really want teams to have this is because like a lot of times scouts need to use the bathroom or like have to go get food or just have to go do anything, right? So I would be able to take over that position and scout for them. And then another big thing is a lot of our data sometimes, sometimes our data would be incorrect because of like sometimes like human error. And one way to fix that is by having your head scout go back and during their break and actually fixing those mistakes. So that way your data is always 100% at all times.
Does your super duper scout also get breaks then? Because it sounds like they're just like working for the entire comp.
Yeah, we get breaks.
Okay.
Yeah, and they manage rotations, make sure the people whose rotation is next that they're actually gonna come in time. And since like our data, we validate it, like any data points we can validate through Blue Alliance, we validate it. So like climbing, so like we cross-reference it and then like it'll tell us if it's wrong. So then the super duper scout will like correct that data.
And also like another thing, if you guys do like decide to implement like a head scout to your roles is like making sure that your scouters are not relying on that head scout, that head scout is just there to help keep things organized, but they should not be reliant on a head scout. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Do you have a question?
2 questions. I'll start with the first one. As I'm the scouting lead of my team, so how do you determine like match rotations when you have a limited amount of team? Like you mentioned you have 20 match rotations when we have 5 match rotations. Is there any benefit of doing a longer match rotation, like 20 matches rotation per shift, than 5, and then that way they're scouting many shifts, but also not as much.
Well,
Like per thing.
yeah. So we believe that 20 is like a good number, or like longer scouting shifts is better because it gets things it gets things way more organized because we did used to have 15 to 10. I think it was like 10 matches. Like every 10 matches we would rotate, but a lot of people wouldn't come on time to their shifts. It would be confusing for like the scouts. And so if you just like stayed there and like you know that you have like to scout from this amount of matches until like 20 matches later, and like your breaks are also longer. So we just believe that it's way more organized as like people aren't going to be moving around as much because if you have like let's say like 5, we just thought that for our team it just had too many people moving around and it would get confusing for our members.
It's also better for our scouters to have longer breaks. It lets them like just cool off more.
Okay. How do you manage scouting during like championships? Like when you need like people scouting heavily, and sometimes you're only able to bring X amount of people. Like so you might have 8 scouters available instead of 30 scouters. Like how would you manage like those rotations?
I mean, yeah, thankfully for our teams, like we have almost just enough people to have like a good amount of rotations where no one's like scouting for a really long time because we don't have enough people or something. So thankfully for us, it's not a huge problem. I mean, usually in championships, we just do the same thing we do during normal competitions, just like 20 rotations. But in your case, maybe like what we kind of mentioned earlier, maybe, you know, you're not able to scout all the matches, you know, but that's okay. Like, it's better to, you know, get some quality data than like, yeah, it's okay to miss some matches as long as you have like data on every team and like a decent amount of matches on every team. So, you know, you have maybe like at least 4 matches on a team or something. You know, that should be enough to get a good idea of the robot's abilities.
Yeah, and like if you said like, it's like you said, like if you had like 8, then you could possibly even do like 2 red, 2 blue. So like you're missing that 3rd robot, but then you're always gonna get that like that data like every match. You won't be missing matches because you always have the 2 scouters that are off rotation and like back on rotation. So that's another idea if you wanted to implement that.
Okay.
Yeah. And usually during championships, like there's a lot of teams like I think sharing their data and stuff. So you could always like look on those like cheap Delphi throws or something about team. And we always ask our scouters like before the season, like what do you guys prefer? Do you guys want shorter breaks or longer breaks? And we kind of adjust. Sometimes we adjust after a competition because they're like, oh hey, actually the break wasn't long enough or the break was too long. You know, we want to scout more matches or something.
Is that all for your question?
Yeah.
You have a question?
How does your team structure like pick list meetings? Like usually, like, how long do they take, or who's involved during the meetings?
So basically, how we structure it is that we always, on the night of the last quals day, we always get together in like one of our like rooms or like online, and we kind of start from the top, right? So we always start from like who's like our top one, then who's our top two, and we go down the list. And eventually, we'll always reach teams that are like, okay, maybe this team might be better than this team. So we start swapping some teams in, and we just keep on going up down the line until we have the minimum for like a line selection, which would be like around like 28 or something, or like I forgot the number. But we always try to go until we have the minimum amount of teams in order to like fully be prepared for a line selection.
Yeah. So yeah, usually what we do is like, first we like let the people come who want to come, right? Because pick lists are can get like the amount of people in it can get really huge, and you want it to be like almost as little people as possible, right? So you can have faster discussions, and you can have the people who really want to be part of those discussions. So like we encourage people to come, but if you are not interested, then you don't have to come. So that's like a big thing we do. And like Rohan says, so basically like first we have like before like we go to any competitions, we have like this metric that's kind of like a culmination of all the other metrics that kind of gets us what we want for that event. So obviously last year, like our main metric was basically like coral scoring, right? You want to fill up the whole reef, so that was like our main metric, and then it was probably like algae, and then probably endgame or something. So it's like we're like weighing all the data points to like make like one metric, and then that's how we rank initially, and then we just go down that list, and like we look at it more intently, like maybe actually looking at are they reliable, are they consistent, and then maybe we'll like switch the teams. And we kind of keep doing that until we have, like Rohan said, the minimum amount for whatever seed we are. And yeah, so it's more like I think it's like called like pickwise or something, but it's basically just like swapping teams until we feel comfortable. And also before we even start that process, we go through all the teams and put them like on a do not pick list, because maybe they break all the time, or which is like why those flags are really useful, because then you can just like sort by the flags and you're like, okay, this team lost comms like 5 times, don't even really consider them unless like we're absolutely at that point. And it just helps make the list like a lot smaller and more manageable. And then I'm trying to like think of all the useful things. Like we also, a thing we do is like if we're not really sure about the robot, usually we'll just like watch one match of theirs, like at 2 times speed, just get like a really like jog people's memories on that team, and that just helps like people maybe recall something that they remembered when they were watching that team. So stuff like that. Does that answer your question?
Do you have any questions?
But it's definitely a process that we're constantly iterating on, because like pick list is probably the hardest part of scouting. So we're constantly trying to make it work.
For that, obviously game dependent, like when you're looking for second round, like your second pick, are you, if it's something where it may be defense, may not, or whatever it is, are you looking for teams that actually play defense during qualifications, or are you like, we could turn anyone into a like how much of, because I know a lot of teams do it, I'm like not calling it, I just know like it's a thing where teams may, if they think they may fall into that position, may start doing it. How much of that impacts your guys' like, how much of that impacts you guys in consideration for that, or is it something where it's like, I'd rather score that couldn't play defense or whatever?
Yeah, definitely. I think the first thing you mentioned, like, or the second thing you mentioned, where we think any team can be a defense robot. Like we do track defense, but when we're actually like deciding the second pick, we don't really look at that metric. That metric is more for just like maybe during normal matches, like, oh hey, that team is a good defense robot, so be aware of them or something. But when we're actually making the second pick, I think our main metric was endgame. For last year, at least during normal competition, championships is a bit different. Yeah, but I think Endgame was like the main one. And then since we have like Super Scouts, which track like the subjective data points, so like driver awareness and driver agility, those are like actually the two metrics we look at to see if someone would be like a good defense robot. Because like
Yeah.
if their driving is good, like and usually those data points are like, are they good at avoiding other robots, or are they like constantly bumping into each other, like their alliance partners, or stuff like driver awareness is like, hey, are they aware of like everything that's going on in the field? So if there's a game piece right by you, are you going to get that game piece, or are you going all the way like over there? So like those are like the two key points that we've actually used in recent, like we implemented them recently, but they like really.
So it's almost, would it be worth it for you guys, for teams to start playing if a team's playing defense during quals, to look more appealing to other teams? For you guys, that doesn't matter, because you guys look for, I'm just like picking brain, like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
guys look for.
Yeah, if they're like really good at defense, then like we're gonna notice them.
Yeah.
But like if it's just like playing playing mediocre defense just to show that you can play defense, we're probably not gonna factor that in.
Yeah.
We have 8 minutes left, right? How much time do we have left?
Yeah, around 7 minutes.
So we'll actually take your question, but at the end, so that way we can get through all of our slides. But just try to memorize or write down your question, so we'll get to it. So now we're gonna go through the 2 main ways of scouting. So paper scouting, which is what a lot of teams like use, but we recommend this for beginner teams that don't have as much resources as other teams. So some pros of this would be that it's easy to create, it's cheap, it works offline, but some of the cons and follows of this are that the data entry takes a lot of time because you have to put the data from paper to like a real spreadsheet. The papers could get lost or messy, and it requires digitalization throughout the competition. So making all that data come to life takes a little while and could even take more resources and headcount in order to actually fulfill that. So that we have digital scouting, which on the right, we have our own app being used. So the pros of this would be the data syncing and how fast data gets uploaded to the actual like whole entire like thing, and it's way more easily accessible because people only need their phone or a tablet in order to digitally scout, and the data is much cleaner and there's room for less human error. But some fall-offs of this is like, personally speaking, like there's a lot of competitions where like the Wi-Fi just gets really bad like all of a sudden, and then like half of our scouts are saying like, oh, I can't scout, or like they're just saying like, oh, like this is like really really annoying. So that's one of the biggest cons of like digital scouting, that like you can't like always depend on the internet, and sometimes it might go down or just like anything. But yeah. So which one? Again, it's completely up to your guys' team, but both of them have their ups and both of them have their downs. But remember that what we recommend is that paper scouting is usually much better for beginner teams or teams that don't have enough resources, and online scouting has more advantages, but it's much harder to create and maintain. So now going into some tools and apps that you can use.
So some scouting apps that you can use. We recommend these, but we don't use these since we have our own systems in place. So one of them is Scouting Pass. Scouting Pass is a easy to use scouting website that allows users to change data points easily. So any points that they have for a team or maybe a team's match, they can be changed easily. Scout Radios is kind of similar to Scouting Pass, but you can upload all this data to kind of a shared global hub where other teams can view it. And the Purple Warehouse is kind of a mix of both, where you can upload your scouting data to a hub, but it isn't global. You can share it with specific teams, or you don't have to share it at all. And some scouting resources that we find really useful are the Citrus white paper. So the Citrus white paper, we got Citrus Circuits, 1678, releases after every single competition season. It's basically a really big and useful doc that says that shows everything that they did during that season that had to do with scouting or strategy or pick list. We look at it a lot. It helps us kind of reflect on what we did, comparing it to Citrus and maybe what we should do in the future. Again, highly recommended. It's really useful. We also have our own white paper. It really talks about the lessons that we learned throughout our years of developing a scouting system. And Chief Delta, I think everyone knows what Chief Delta is, right? Okay.
So these are like, if you guys want to scan this QR code, it's a QR code that leads to all the research that we talked about, especially on the our own 1796 white paper, which we don't really have public. So this is like a nice resource kit to have, and yeah.
The white paper is from 2023, but it still has a lot of the stuff we do today.
We could just go into the Q&A. Oh wait, so some key takeaways. So some key takeaways is that like scouting is critical to match success. Scouting can differ heavily from team to team. It's best to start simple and it's good to look at other scouting systems for inspiration. So now we'll take your guys' Q&A if you guys have any questions left over. So yeah, starting with you.
After qualifications end, do you guys make an attempt to pit scout specific teams after, or do you just rely on your pit scouting from during qualifications and then on the scouting team?
Yeah, so we don't like race pit scout teams. So once we pit scout teams, we just have it there. And again, we mostly use pit scouting data as a way to get those first matches, right? Because we don't know who our alliance partners are going to be for our first 2 matches. So we like to pit scout everyone and learn more about their robot.
But we definitely towards the end of quals, we'll already start a pseudo pick list. So we'll have somewhat of an idea of our top 10. And if we have further questions for those teams, we might go to them at the end of the day and just ask them. But usually those questions are more mechanism specific. Yeah.
Is that all for your question?
I'm wondering how you guys, if and how you guys incorporate data points like OPR from TBA and EPA from stat audits. Do you guys use stuff like that, or do you just rely on your stuff?
Yeah, I would say we just rely on our own. We do look at it, but not.
Yeah, it's just at the end of the day, we trust our scouting data more than all the other scouting data. So, does that all for your question? Thank you.
So, scouting is separate from the strategy point, since you guys are mainly focusing on strategy. Scouting on here, does that mean that the people that do each are separate, or are they working? How is that connected, and how is that passed along to the rest of the drive team and the rest of that?
So it usually goes that our scouters, they get data from the matches, and then that moves on to, let's say a scouter's scouting a specific team that we're going to play with or play against. That data goes to our match strategist that builds a strategy, and then that strategy goes to our drive team.
Yeah. So I would say it's separated. Yeah, but last year we implemented
a data analyst, which would
data analyst,
connect all of them.
Yeah, which is a connection between scouting and.
So what they do then?
Yeah, so what they do is they're actually in the stands. So they have they're still they're not scouting, but they're actually looking at the robots and have a better idea of how the game is being played and how the robots are what they're doing. And they look at the data and then they make a initial strategy for our upcoming matches, and then the match strategists come up to the stands and they discuss and make changes if need be, and then the match strategist is the one that actually tells the drive team what the
And that person use the opponent's data as well
Yeah.
to predict their score to.
Yeah.
So, well, we'll answer your question outside. But thank you guys for coming to our segment here. Yeah, thank you guys.